Welcome to the Natural Phonics Primer, a universal safety net for literacy by Donald L. Potter. And this little boy that you see in the picture here represents, it could be anybody, could be a girl, could be a young person, older person, teenager. And this net down here represents our effort to be sure and rescue and to guarantee that every student learns to read well. And that's the purpose of this. And it's the reason we call it the universal safety net for literacy. And in this introductory video, we're going to explain how we're going to do that. And in case you're wondering, there is a picture of me, and this is some information on the back of our book. The Natural Phonics Primer is a truly unique approach to helping every student develop high levels of English literacy, that's reading and spelling, by focusing on decoding and encoding skills that are foundational to orthographic mapping and true sight word development. That means that you can read well. Elements of precision teaching are used. That means that we do timings and we watch not only your accuracy, which is very important, but also the growth. So there are 72 carefully graded fluency exercises for grades kindergarten through 8th grade. People ask me, what grade is this for? Yes, it's for all of them. Once a student has finished going through the entire program, we just simply crank up the speed and go through it again, and just once a year. And for the other older grades, it take an hour or two actually to go through the whole program. So let's take a look here. Notice the title, Natural Phonics Primer. By the way, that's pronounced primer in education field, at least here in the United States. In other parts of the world, it would be pronounced primer. It's not the primer like a paint primer. It is primer, and a primer is a first book that lays a foundation or teaches the basics of any subject. And so you could have a primer on biology, astronomy, politics, anything you want, math. So it's a beginning book. That's what the word means. And it's called natural because we use a natural sequence. Now, the triangle explains our approach. There are 26 letters in the alphabet and 44 speech sounds. So these letters, which we see, are used to map the words that we hear and we say. So these words have sounds. And of course, words also have meaning. And we're talking about how we know a word. What's it mean to know a word? You might know a word when you hear it, but not know how to read it. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about knowing a word in the full literary sense of being able to read the word and spell the word and understand the word so that you can understand it in a sentence, or you can make a sentence yourself using that word. And so the three components of reading are the letters, that's what we see, the sounds, that's what we hear and say, and then the meaning. Notice this arrow from the sound to the meaning is very dark, and that's on purpose. By the way, this is called the reading triangle. And there's different forms of it. This is the one I prefer. Anyway, that line is very dark. And that's because that when you approach learning to read, generally speaking, you know the words. You can, if somebody tells you a story, you can enjoy it, know what they're saying, but you can't read it. So going from the sound, what you hear and say, to the meaning is already established when you come to learn to read. And so we don't have to teach that. Yes, you will learn more words as you read, and reading really expands your vocabulary. And this is the thinking part up here. Now, proceeding down our page here in the introduction, the secret of reading, in my opinion, I call it Don Potter's secret of reading, is to look at all the letters the right way and no guessing. Students coming to me for tutoring generally guess the words. I think that's a result of being taught sight words by memorization without spelling. To reinforce this, there's a sign in my room, and I just drew one right here, but I have a beautiful sign that 2 girls gave me one year for Christmas years ago. It says, "No guessing zone." And so when you sit down to read, you want to enter into the no guessing zone. Let's jump ahead and talk about the ultimate goal. I take this from reading boot camp from my friend Kathy up in Indiana. She has a reading boot camp. It's a tremendous program, and their goals are very, very worthy, very lofty. Number one is to develop strong readers, and that's what we do with our phonics program. But the second is powerful thinkers, and so we want to watch what we read and make sure that it is material that will develop the children's ability to think. And number three, and very important, is informed decision makers, because we're interested in the impact of our teaching on the students. I call this, notice at the bottom here, the universal safety net for literacy, and there's a reason for that. You will accomplish the program is designed to accomplish four goals here. The first one is for beginners. So somebody's just starting to read, it's just a perfect program for them. And yes, I have used this with kindergartners. And if they can just make it through the first few lessons, they will already be understand what reading's about and become strong readers. And number two, it serves as screening. In other words, it is the test. If they can read the first exercise, or the first, say, 12 or 13 exercises, then they pass the screen. It doesn't mean they don't go through the program, but it means that we've proven that they can do the work. If they can't, then they can't. So you got to teach them from the ground up. And so it's a universal screening, and if it were implemented in schools across America, it would provide all the screening necessary to decide if a student should be in a program such as RTI and where they would fit into that program, which is a response to intervention. Number three, it's excellent for remediation. So if somebody fails this test, then the fact of going through the program, it's automatically going to be remediated. And when they reach exercise 50, they generally become free readers. Number four, good readers get better. And this is a unique part of the program because we take the students through this phonics program every year, at least ideally, that's the way it should be. So they go through it in first grade at 40 words a minute. By the time they get to sixth grade, the speed starts going up, and we have a calibrated speed for every grade level. And then we use a technique that's called blend phonics, and I actually teach this either at the board or at the paper and at the desk. In fact, I teach at a narrow desk, and I actually write the letters upside down, and then the students see them right side up. I find that the most effective, but then I have the luxury of teaching one-on-one usually. But when I teach this to whole classes, and I've taught it to classes with as many as 25 students and second graders, so it can be taught it's equally. This blend phonics, it's really a program that was published by Hazel Loring, but it's not so much a program, it is a technique. And it's also called sequential phonics or cumulative phonics by I.A. Beck. And so what we do, we teach the letter. So we'll teach the letter B, and we teach the letter name and the letter sound at the same time. And we have to do that because in this approach, my approach anyway, I want the students to be spelling the words orally and in writing just as they learn the words. So this is actually a spell to read approach. So we're going to teach a B, and we draw the word and show them how to write it. And then we add an A. Now we have ba. And that's not a word, that's called a blend. And notice the arrow showing that we have directionality that's built into this program, which is really, really helpful for kids that might have tendencies towards dyslexia. Then we add the T, which says T. So we did the B, the A, ba, and then we add the T, bat. And quite often when you write ba, the students will actually say a word, like they'll say bat. And the reason is because if they've been taught sight words, they've been taught to look at the first couple letters and really not focus on all the letters. And so we're teaching them to focus on all the letters so they can become excellent readers. And then what I'll do a lot of times when they say bat, I'll, instead of putting a T at the end, I'll put a G. I say, now what's the word? Now we have G at the end, so now we have bag, bag. Now, when you teach this program, always use the words in a sentence. So when the kids sound out the word bat, you say, great. Use that in a sentence. And if they're young and they don't know what that means, then you can use a sentence. Mary put popcorn in a, well, I said bat. Johnny hit the ball out of the ballpark with his bat. And the same thing, bag. Mary put popcorn in a bag. So notice that according to the reading triangle, and phonics is not taught properly if you try to eliminate the meaning. So we go from the letters, we sound out the word, and then we use the word in a sentence. Now, in the few minutes that we have left, I want to show you the engine. I call this is like the engine that's under every phonics program. These are what's called the phonovisual charts. And the ones that they sell are in color, and they're very, very nice. And there are big ones you can put up in your classroom, and very, very inexpensive. There's no reason a teacher cannot afford these in their classroom. So on the left here we have consonants, on the right we have vowels. Now I said there were 44 speech sounds in English called phonemes. 43 of those are on this chart. And then the letters, 26 letters. Well, the letters are on the chart that represent those sounds. Sometimes we do a shortcut and we just say letter sounds. Letters, written letters, don't have a sound, but we understand that, but it's just kind of a shortcut to say represent the sound. Now, I'm going to go over these charts very, very fast, and when we when I teach the exercises, we won't go back over this. Again, this is the engine. I don't care what phonics program you teach, you're going to teach what the information that's on these charts. It's organized in a scientific or linguistic manner. They've been around since 1942, according to the copyright, and I've been using them for over 20 years. And because that, even if I taught another phonics program, I still teach these. Because everything you need to know to read technically is on these two pieces of paper. And I'll take them and send them to school with the students so that they can refer to these in their class, my tutoring students. Okay, we got to go really quick here. The consonants are in columns, and each column starts in the front of the mouth and goes to the back of the mouth. The first column, the kids call quiet cousins because they're voiceless consonants. Then they have a corresponding consonant, which are the voiced consonants. The next column are the nasal consonants. You make them with your, let's see, they call the second column we call the noisy cousins because they're voiced. The middle column we call singing cousins because they're nasal and you can actually sing a song with them. And then the other are the letters that we need to finish reading, and they are always related to the ones on the right. This is a scientific organization. Speech teachers use charts that are very similar. We are now being told to use word sound walls instead of word walls in our classroom, according to the science of reading. And but the phonovisual program's been doing that for forever, and so it's really not something new in classrooms like mine that have been using this. And I really think these are as good or better than any of the new ones that are out. Let's go very quickly. Pig, p. Notice it's not p, it's just p. It's a p sound. You don't say p-ig, you say pig, pig. W-H, wheel, kind of dropping out of English pronunciation in many areas. We have the fan, and the PH under it's called a secondary spelling. So we can spell the F sound with an F, a PH, and sometimes GH we'll study later. 3, notice it's not, well, 3. Top, not T. You don't say T-op, it's top. Saw, ship, the SH, ship. Cherry, and sometimes with a TCH, another secondary spelling. Oh, and the C has a secondary spelling because the C can say which we learn at the end, towards, in the latter part of the blend phonics, natural phonics primer program. Next we have key, which can be spelled with a K or CK. And remember, the K is used with an E and an I, and the C an A, a O, and a U. Then we have horn. Notice we went from the front to the back of the mouth. Now we have the corresponding letter. Instead of the P, we're going to add our voice to it. Now we have B. And I use a mirror often to teach these. In fact, I have a mirror on my desk at all times that the students can refer to. When they watch their mouth, they can see better how to form these sounds correctly. And this helps kids that have speech problems too. And in a phonics class, those kids really benefit. And perhaps don't even need to go to a speech class if they get good phonics. Bear, B. W, wagon, W. Valentine, V. And I didn't mention that line after the letter indicates it's the sound at the beginning of the word. This, V. And they use this because there's not very many words that have the voiced TH. Duck, D, D, very fast, not duh, just D. Zebra, Z, and the S has the Z sound, secondary spelling. Jar, ch, ch. Goat, G, 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 really fast sound. You notice an area right there that's blank. That's actually a voiced SH. It's Webster spelled it ZH, J as in television, measure, treasure. And the phonovisual did not put anything there because it's not used in all that many words. But there are 44 speech sounds, 43 of them are taught on these charts. And we teach the ZH and so on in a later lesson in the natural phonics primer. The singing cousins are nasals. We have monkey, nest, swing, and then later you'll have as in the word link. And then we have queen, qua, which is a W sound with the K, qua. Leaf, l. The sound comes around the sides of your tongue. Leaf, l. Rabbit, r, not R, by the way. It's r, like a dog or barking. R, growling, r. Next is a little hard to see. That's a yard. Yard. Y has other sounds that we'll learn later, but now we're just doing the beginning consonant sound. And then we have box, x, x, which is a KS sound. X, x. Before we go to the vowels, I want you to notice the p, b, your lips come together, called bilabials. And these are letters that are easily confused on the sound level, okay? And so when a student misreads a word, sometimes when they're starting out, they'll see a P and they'll come up voicing it, making a B and miss the word. And you just have to go back and, let me see, WH again, the QU is a W and a K. The F, V, you can see the lower lips touching your teeth. V, t, d, n, l. Okay, T, D, N, and L. Those are called alveolars. And boy, do kids have trouble with those. If you got a word that ends like an N and a D, like and, they may say and or they may say add, because so starting out, so you got to teach discrimination of these sounds. And the others, again, there are relationships as you go across. Let's jump over to the vowels very quickly. We teach the short vowels first, and phonovisual put them on top. They actually taught EE first. Anyway, cake, the top is a long vowels, the row. Notice as you go down, you got A. Each column, there's a visual commonality there. You have an O, I, U. So that's how these are organized. I call the top ones the long vowels, the next one the short vowels, and then the others I just call the other vowel sounds. And so we have cake, A, spelled A, and that line there represents a consonant. So if you put a T in there, you got t, 8. A-Y and A-I. The next long vowel is double E. E. Notice there are some E consonant E words like Pete, but not too many, so they just use the double E. E at the end of a word like be and me, and then E-A as in each. And we have, notice you have the primary spelling and then the secondary represented on this chart. 5, I, the Y as in by and IGH as in light, and then IE as in kite. O of rose, and notice the OW can have the O sound and the OW sound, and we have separate letters for those, lessons for those. The last long vowel is the UE as in mule, and also spelled EW as in blew. He blew a trumpet. Now we go to the short vowels. Notice the phonovisual method uses key words with the short vowel in the middle instead of at the front, like most will have apple, for example, for the A sound. But we're going to use the word cat, and the two lines there, these were designed by actually Carolyn Yale and a lady before her, to represent in a non-ambiguous way, in an unmistakable way, that that's a short A without having to put a breve on top of it. Anyway, we have a cat, a of bed, and a secondary spelling EA. The I of fish, fish, and the Y, they considered the Y at the end of baby to be a short I sound. Top, duck, a, I, and then in the A column here we have AW, saw, and as in the word saw, and then AU and ALL, also same sound. AR in car, and the R is set off to show that it changes the sound of the A. Going to the O column here we have U of moon, of book, owl of cow. There's two spellings, largely because the U cannot be used at the end of a word, or generally it's not used at the end of a word. Oi, boy, that's a diphthong instead of a digraph because it's got the two sounds. Well, ow too. Anyway, oi, and the I here cannot be used at the end of a word, so we use OY as in boy at the end of the word, and OI inside a word like boil. Then we have the OR of fork and the of fur, and that's fur there, and the can be spelt three different ways, and then OR usually says or, but at the end of a word like doctor, you don't say doctor. And these charts are very important because no matter what phonics program you use, this is the engine under the hood. You name a phonics program that's worth its salt, and everything on this chart is in that. And so that's why this chart is of universal application. They did not make, the phonovisual people did not make separate readers, because they felt that once a student had mastered these charts, they could read any of the primers, even the look-say primers, the leveled readers that we have today. I prefer to teach a ordered phonics program, but if you got these charts, you just about got the whole field covered. And again, these are great to give the kids to take to school. You can send them home and the parents can work with them. The pictures are there, which make it very easy. I should mention that there are flashcards also that go with these, and even exercise books. Anyway, okay, so there you have it. the Natural Phonics Primer, a universal safety net for literacy. Our next videos are going to be shorter, and they're going to be directed more at the younger or students of any age to make sure that they can read and spell all of the words in each exercise and read them orally at their calibrated speed for their grade level. All right, this is Don Potter, and we appreciate you joining us for this great adventure to lay down to set up a safety net that will be wide enough and strong enough to catch all of the people in our society today that for some reason missed out on learning to read and spell.